Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is David Benjamin, and this is Last Chance Radio. And I just want to welcome you all back. Um, I know it's been a couple of days since we did part one of Genie Energy, and I apologize to you for taking so long to get back to you on finishing this one. But and I have to kind of leak on myself, which I never do, but it's worth doing it in this case because I just want you to understand where I went to. Well, I can't tell you the whole thing because I want to break it to you the way you break any good story, the right way in its own show, right? It's coming. But I want to give you a heads up, and here's what I'm going to tell you as kind of as a payback or a payoff to my Jedi Roundtable, where logical thinking still lives. Excuse me. Now, to pay it off, I have to give you something, and here it is. Vlad the Impaler, and we know who that is, right? Vlad the Impaler is up to something. What exactly he is up to, I am not sure yet. I keep trying to get my hands around that skinny little chicken that is. I, obviously, you know, he'd probably he'd probably have me taken care of quick, fast, in a hurry. But he is up to something, and here's what I can tell you. If you know what a stock ticker is, I'm going to give you the ticker symbol. Okay. Here's what I'm going to tell you. It's Putin, and the stock ticker symbol is HMY, Hotel Mary Youngstown. Okay. And the metal is probably platinum, but it may be palladium because I spent half the day looking at PALL, which is another stock ticker symbol. PALL. The first one is HMY, Harmony. I'm not giving you any more than that, but that's where I'm at, and there's something going on, and it's a real thing. So, anyways, I am grateful that you are here, and I am grateful that my Jedi's are returning to the round table of free thinking. We are going to pick up where we left off, but I'm going to help anyone who wasn't here. You saw how I did it last time. I got to give you a fill in a little bit so people have a clue what we're doing here, right? So we were talking about Genie Energy and what they're doing up in the Golan Heights in Israel, right? And we want to, what we did last time is we first talked about what we called something that I found out called the Tripact. And the Tripact was something we discussed several things, and we don't really go back over them. But we wanted to we want to make sure that you understand at least where we're coming from and where we're going. And I'm trying to avoid. Remember last week we had that little thing going on? Yeah. Well, we're going to try and avoid that with my clunky hands. So I'll just take this from top of my head because it's fine. I got a bunch of things I got to do from the top of my head tonight. So bear with me as usual. I try not to be too scatterbrained tonight. Try not to be too all over the place. Excuse me. And we'll see how things are working out. And let me see something here real quick. I want to make sure we're not wasting each other's time here. There we go. All right. Now I feel better. Okay. So You know how it goes. The first couple of minutes of me getting in here, it takes me a minute to get settled in and figure out where I'm going and try and put away what I was just working on, like I was just telling you about, and now pick up the ball and run with it. And where we're gonna go is here's the question. Here is like tonight's question, and I've had this question on my mind uh, since episode one, but I want to make sure you got this question in your mind too as we go forward. Okay, so we let down the Kurds and turned our back on them, and those people have put their lives on the line for our people, whether they be pilots or lost SEAL team members, or, well, I know SEAL team members don't get lost, so forgive me, SEAL team members. Anyways, but here's the question. Let's just get to it here. We left the Kurds out in the cold. That was, we know that's wrong, period. I mean, we just know it, okay? And I can tell you that because I was out there I was there more than one time and not three times. So these people are all they want is their own country, and they want to run it like our country. They love how our they act. I mean, they sit there and study the Constitution of the United States, and I'm like, boy, how do I get that home and have my people study the Constitution of the United States? It's funny. One of that same commander I told you about. If you've listened to some of my episodes, I wouldn't get my head down. He said, if you don't get your head down, I'm gonna slap it down. That same one said to me when I asked him about the Constitution. He said, take it away from them for a while, and they'll start studying it again. They'll want it back, won't they? You know, it's funny because I heard Nancy Pelosi last night on what's his name show. Um, Bear with me. Talking about uh, what's going on and everything, and she brought it up that that Franklin, another one of Franklin's beautiful sayings, that he came out when they had created the Constitution and signed it and all that, and the people were all there. Well, what do we have? What do we have? Do we have a monarchy, or do we have a new country? What do we have? And he said, we have a republic. We have a republic. We have a democratic republic if we can keep it. If we can keep it. Okay? So that's kind of where we are. And I see his words having as much meaning then as they do now, and perhaps even more now than then. I don't know. But I imagine if I was back then with the Brits staring down, or looking down you know, our wagons and everything else they were doing. I mean, it was just abusive. That's why we fought. We didn't fight a war because it was funny. But I'm sure it's equally as serious now as it was then. So what's the question, David? What's the question? Why would the United States, after we just did this thing to the Kurds, after how many years, why would the United States military now be protecting Syrian oil? That's the question. Official answer at this time is to keep the Syrian oil from falling into the hands of bad actors. Of course, I said it won't. Who would that be? Well, obviously, it's ISIS, right? Obviously, it's ISIS, but sure, it could be. It could be somebody else. Of course. I mean, that is a logical answer. Is it the logical answer? Is it the truth? Is it? No, let me just stop it all right here, like slamming the brakes on an 18 wheeler and seeing all the tires light up and all that blue smoke come out. Okay? Um, That's nonsense. We're gonna go and protect Syrian oil to keep it out of the bad actors' hands. All right. Well, let me do this. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna for those of you who are here and those of you who were not here, what we talked about last time before we ended was we talked about two things. We talked about Genie Energy and all of the people that are involved in that. And if you go to Wikipedia and just just type in Genie Energy and scroll down just maybe a paragraph, you'll see like the tier one team of politics and power around the world. And I am talking about, and I forgot a guy last week, and I got reminded very heavily of that. Uh, Mr. Mercer. Okay. I'm sure some of you know that name. Mercer and uh, Greenstein, and, you know, I just see Greenstein, Mercer, Kushner, Trump, Shabbat, Rick Perry, all getting in on this now, right? But just so you know, you're going to have to go and look this up yourself now because I'm not going back through that at this time. Look up Genie Energy on Wikipedia, and I want you to look at their board members. You will see the heads of CIA. You will see former attorneys general. You'll see a vice president or former vice president, however you say it these days. I'm not sure. Excuse me. Um, but there's a lot of. I mean, the heavy hitters on this uh, board are kind of like, whoa, what are these guys creating here, man? This is. I mean, seriously, it's kind of scary. Because you don't put people like that together to just hand wave. It's not. They wouldn't waste their time with this. Okay, so why the United States military protects Syrian oil? Official answer: to keep the Syrian oil from falling in the hands of bad actors. Does that feel like it fills up your glass of answer? Me neither, folks. Me neither. All right, so when we were talking last week, we talked about who Genie Energy is and who's their board members, and just trying to explain a little bit about the power that these people have. Um, and then the other side of that coin was trying to kind of get through to everybody a story that I broke, but there are some other people who have been working on this same story as well, um, and maybe we'll go into that at some point, but not now, because I want to go directly into what that story was, and that story was the Tripact. And the Tripact was between Kushner and Trump and the White House administration, and MBS, Mohammed bin Salman, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, and later on in the deal, Netanyahu and some other people in that area became involved in it as well, for sure. All you have to do is look at the first name on who is running uh, Genie Energy. You'll know that the Israelis have their hands in this too. Okay? So, what was the Tripact? What happened? Well, it went like this. Jared Kushner and the Kushner family, who is a very wealthy um, real estate mogul-ish type family, and a building that they had bought into, because they had their eye on it for a long time, it's called the 666 building, believe it or not. I mean, the prophecy, and we'll come back to that in a minute too, the prophecy people, because boy, they are getting all kinds of cranked up. Um, so what's the deal? So the deal is uh, they buy the 666 building and they get themselves into financial grief with it. I mean, the building was, I guess it needed some kind of work, or the prices were not in the right area. Just it was not working out real well for them, to say the least. I mean, these people were almost upside down, uh, 2/3 of $1 billion. Okay, that's a lot of millions. So they were in trouble. So Trump gets elected, and the Kushner family obviously comes together and maybe talks to some people out at Shabbat and Long Island there, and they come up with a plan. And the plan is, it's really dirty, but you can see it's the transactional nature. So they create a problem. They got a problem. They need solved, right? Their 666 building is upside down. They're in danger of losing it to default on to the banks and all kinds of stuff. So what happens? Jared goes. Remember when Kushner kind of disappeared to Saudi Arabia for a while? Like a while back, people were like, well, "Where did he go? What was he talking him to?" Blah blah blah. The same kind of stuff we were asking about with POTUS being alone with Vlad the Impaler, you know, and so the deal is apparently now that what Kushner told MBS is this. He said, "I need you to do something for me, but first, let me ask you to do something for me." Does it sound familiar? He asks MBS to go and blockade the Qatars, the Qataris, Qatar, Qatar. Okay, another Middle East state country. Okay, so MBS says, "Well, what's in it for me?" And Jared, I don't know how he put it. I don't know how he sold it. I wasn't there. Thank God. And but bottom line, uh, MBS sent the Saudi Arabian Navy to blockade Qatar, and they kept product from going in and out of the country for long enough to make it hurt. Because what happened is suddenly the Kushners pay off a good chunk of that 666 money. Well, what was the actual deal? Well, the deal was to Qatar ease in order to get the blockade lifted, had to pay Kushner a 99-year lease for 10% of the 666 building. I'll say that again. 99 years, 10% of the 666 building. How much? $900+ million. You follow me? All right. So they do this. And you can go back and even look when they call when the deal was done. Pompeo goes out and tries to cover the tracks of the crime, so to speak. And he goes out and he goes, "Well, I want the Saudi Arabians and I want the Qataris to get over this nonsense and stop it." Guess what? It stopped. Wow. Spectacular, spectacular. So 666 is paid off. Guess whose turn it is? Muhammad's. Muhammad wants his thing. What's Muhammad want? Muhammad knows exactly what he wants. He wants nuclear energy. What a great idea. Let's give the Saudis access to any kind of nuclear power that could possibly lead to nuclear weapons. Obviously, that's a bad idea. And somewhere around this point, uh, I'm guessing the Mossad figured out what was going on here and told Bibi. And I can guarantee you, Bibi is not going to get left out of this deal. You kidding me? I knew the Kushners for so long. Do you remember that story? Now, you know how Bibi met the Kushner family through the Shabbat house on Long Island. That's their thing. The Shabbat house on Long Island is the place where you get deals done, and hopefully no one finds out about them. So MBS ends up with a former component of General Electric, which was known as the General Electric Nuclear Construction Component. General Electric comes out with some story about how they're doing poorly and they need to calve this thing off, and they sell it. And guess who they sell it to? No one knows, but guess who? We know who it is now. They sold it to the Saudis. You can just bet. You can just bet that if the Israelis heard that right off the bat, they'd have been crazy, you know? So that also pulled in another thing that wasn't supposed to happen, I imagine, but it did happen. And we know why it happened now, too, because we've got all the fingerprints all over the United States as well with this is Jamal Khashoggi. Khashoggi was the Washington Post reporter who was murdered by a Saudi 15-man hit team, hit squad. And do you know where these people were getting training just before they killed Khashoggi? Arkansas. Just a few flights before Khashoggi gets bone sawed, they were training at a State Department contracted special operations training a private, like the old Blackwater type stuff, Mr. Prince. Yeah, that kind of stuff. Next thing you know, Khashoggi's dead. Why do you think Khashoggi got dead? Khashoggi got dead because he was about to come forward and drop this whole thing before anybody knew anything about it. It would have been a wildfire. It would have been incredible. 666 for 900 million Qataris held at blackmail. Uh, God only knows the international laws that were broken, et cetera, et cetera. So, in the end, though, what does Israel get out of this? Well, you know the Israelis; they always play their hands very smart. I mean, I guess I'm bragging on them because I'm a Jew. We had a discussion about that last show also. Um, but basically, they said, and supposedly there is a letter and a recording somewhere of some official of the United States and some official of the Saudi government promising to stand with Israel in case the Iranians ever decide to get froggy. For the most part, I don't think Israel needs anyone's help, but it's always nice to have someone like the United States behind you going, uh, that's my little brother. I suggest you don't do that. Well, they've got that. And that was good enough for them at this point. I think there's something else there too, actually, very simple. I think Bibi and a few of his Israeli business buddies and some other people who needed greasing got got a slice of that Genie energy pie because it seems to be a very deep, wide, and thick pie. No joking. Okay, so now you understand what the Tripact was. So what's the point of telling you about the Tripact? The Tripact being told to you at this point is to get over to you once again how everything that comes through the Trumpian White House admin, whatever you want to call them, um, is is transactional. You do for me, I don't do for you. Da-na-na. You know, it's like I can hear every Joe Pesci and Don Corleone and every mob movie I've ever heard in my life. I can just hear it like rattling around, right? So that's what I hear. So I go back to the question: why do the United States military protect Syrian oil, et cetera, et cetera? And we know keeping it away from the bad actors, right? I don't believe the answer. Do you? Right now, think about this. Um, where are the cameras? Where are the cameras for news agencies or organizations, etc., uh, to show us these United States soldiers protecting these specific Syrian fields? Who? What company? I want to know who our guys are protecting by name. Who? And I'm not an owl. Who? So I can just see the guys, the reporters who want to do their job going out there and say, we got to find where this is, and then getting kind of a back alley uh, note left for them on their car windshield wiper or something that says, if you'd ever like to have access to the White House again, you know, if you'd like to maintain your current access and not lose future access to stories, perhaps you just shut up and move along. Nothing to see here. We've heard and seen this before, haven't we? So the first transaction was the Tripact. Now, it's debatable about which one was actually first or second, but when I bring it up, you'll see why I'm saying it's debatable. The second one is Jerusalem and the U.S. Embassy. Okay, so Trump now has roads named after him, and maybe they'll rename the Golan Heights to the Trump Heights, which is just frightening in and of itself, but only in a moralistic way, not in a real way. Um, so so I guess to get the ball rolling, Trump did the Jerusalem U.S. Embassy thing. So I'm not really willing to put it in some time frame exactly, but that's definitely one of the transactional components of this is Jerusalem U.S. Embassy. Um, the third component of this is, in my opinion, and I believe that it's all going to unfurl itself, is going to be we weren't protecting Syrian oil. We were protecting who? Genie. We were protecting Genie. You know? Now, there is a fourth, and that's where we're going now. And I'm going to keep all of this really simple because I dragged you around last time, and I apologize for that. It was a little long. But I felt like we should get to know each other. So if you want to get to know us, go back and watch the last one. I did have a good time, though, to be honest with you. I enjoyed speaking with you guys. Um, and I'm going to tell you about the fourth one in a second. But I do want to bring up what I just was checking my notes here, and it's a good thing. U.S. military being used to provide defensive protection for a private corporation. I wonder how illegal that is. Somehow, I mean, it just can't be illegal. You can't buy the United States military to protect private corporations. At least I didn't think you could. To be followed up by President Trump. This is what I see happening, and it's almost like I don't even need a crystal ball. This is like so written out in the sand that you'd have to be a fool not to see this coming. Stepping forward, when the inevitable happens, there will be an attack on those U.S. forces who are protecting that Syrian oil, and maybe even get some splatter on some Israeli forces who are nearby. You can easily see that happening, I'm sure. Um, which will trigger Donald J. Trump to suggest to a slobberingly waiting Netanyahu and the good people of Israel, God help them over there right now. They're gonna, they, Trump is gonna say to him, "You're being threatened, and as a matter of your own Israeli national security, we recommend to you that you take over the entire Golan Heights and the West Bank if you need to." I'm not the first one saying this. This has been floated before. It's out there. Okay? And the entire Golan Heights being permanently made into a component of Israel has already been adjudicated in one of the international courts as a violation of international law. Expect there to be a caveat that a small section of Syrian land will be temporarily used as a staging and setup and defensive position. So, why? Well, what if it's not all right there in the Golan? What if some of it's up a little bit this way or a little bit that way? How can we slip this under the carpet and make sure our people are protecting our stuff? This is a temporary measure. I've heard a few of those uh, along my journeys and travels. There's also something out there about some group called Global, but I'm going to leave them off to the side, just mentioning them in case they do pop up somewhere. Uh, and the end game is for Trump to give Netanyahu the green light for Israel to take over the entire Golan Heights, and under the green light, the oligarchist Genie folks will move in full force, and it's already been deemed against international law, but we know how this administration deals with legal scenarios. Just ignore it. Maybe it'll go away. Also, and we're going to go into this further. I was thinking about it earlier. This deserves another episode here, the White Russian influence, because I've been asking people, and nobody has a clue. White Russian, it's a drink, right? No. There was a civil war in during the late 1800s or early 1900s in that area, and one of the groups were they were pro-Tsarist, they were orthodoxy leaning, and oddly enough, they are dominionists in their own way. And that's why they got along with the Nazis, and we are going to get into that. Not tonight, but we are going to get into that because the United States has always pulled off some real doozies. We always think we're the white shining knight, but man, we have pulled off some real winners. And one of them was at the end of World War II. You remember how all the Nazis were running for cover and trying to find a deal here, or just get out of town, whatever. And one of the deals that got made was with SS General Reinhard Galen, who ran the Belarusian and the area surrounding that intelligence for the Third Reich. Well, at the end of World War II, who became the new enemy on the block of the United States, the Russians. And guess who had all kinds of intelligence on the Russians? General Reinhard Galen. So, what did the United States do? Not only did we, like, say, okay, we won't hang your ass. I mean, he was under a death sentence. No kidding. I mean, that's not a joke. He was under a death sentence. But not only do we say, all right, we'll give you an apartment, 3 hots and a cot, and you'll work for us until you die, and you're lucky you're not dropping through a little hole in the 2x4 porch house back and whatever. Um, we put him in charge of that entire component of the world. That whole that whole Ukrainian and all the Belarusian, Ukrainian, all that area out there. He was in charge of that, but not as some like you know third rate keep him undercover guy. We made him like what did we call him? An assistant deputy or deputy assistant to uh, something ridiculous. Seriously, the guy had, when he retired, it was in the 70s, when he retired from the CIA after his long and fruitful SS general uh, job. They literally gave him a going away party at the CIA building, and they drank fruit punch, and I've heard stories about it. Anyways, it's really insane. But I wanted to get back to you and tell you that the green light, not only being from Trump to Bibi, okay, on this Golan takeover, I've been some of the best ways to learn stuff is to go and watch. I don't want to call these people like an enemy, but and I don't want to call really anyone an enemy, but if you want to see what the nutcases are, let's say for instance you want to know what white supremacists are doing, well you find out where they hang out and you go and you put an ear against the glass and you listen. Yeah. So I do that, and now these people are my enemy, like I said. Now the neo Nazis are my enemy. I don't like them very much. Um, the green light though has also been given to the, I call them part of the Dominionist component because I feel like they are, but you may see it differently. But it's the end timers. Like I consider them like part of the family. It was on Netflix. If you haven't seen it on Netflix, you definitely, it's a must see. You gotta watch it. It's 5 episodes. Sign up for Netflix, watch it, and then quit Netflix. I don't care. Or stay with Netflix for the next 5 years, and I'll get you a special price from Last Chance Radio with David Benjamin, 10% off. Hey, guys gotta eat, man. So you can yell at me if you want. But anyways, the Armageddon people are salivating, and they don't even really know all of this stuff yet. But they are real. I'll tell you what happened. What I figured out about these people is that because they come at looking for intelligence from that perspective, that they're not looking at the way we look at it, like we're looking for news or who's making a deal and who's got the money and this, that, the way we normally follow a investigation or a story or something like that. Okay, they're looking at they're looking at it from a perspective of when will Jesus return to earth or the Messiah if you're a Shabbatnik, because you got to understand, right? The Shabbatnik types, okay? And there's no such thing as a good Jew and a bad Jew. We did that last week also, so go back and listen to that also because I don't want to hear about it. Okay? It's nonsense. The thing, just because you're right wing doesn't mean you're hopelessly lost forever, even though we feel that way right now. And yes, I know you're all throwing your drinks at the screen about now, but look, man, still, even the Trumpers and the Trumpets, we may be dissatisfied or unhappy with them with what they've done and how they're still sticking with them because that's just crazy. But at the end of the day, they're Americans. And, how many of you have ever been in a relationship you're like, you just want to kill that person? They cheated on you, or they just did one of those heinous things that's just horrible. You broke up with them, but you would have liked to have seen them fall down a long flight of stairs. But anyways, at the end of the day, they're Americans. And we can be pissed at them, I guess, or whatever, but they're Americans, so you're not going to get me going anywhere past that. And eventually we're going to have to forgive and forget and move along here, folks, because if we don't, we're going to have that rift laying around for a long time. It's not good for the country. It's not good for our economy. It's not good for our kids playing baseball. It's not good to have something like laying around like that, right? So when we get rid of this guy, we're going to have to forgive people. So, you know what? We've all been talking about, how we're the enlightened, woke, and all that kind of stuff. If we are, you're going to have to prove it. You're going to have to prove it. And you know what I mean by prove it. Yeah, you can tell me to go F myself, I'm sure. The green light, though, for these end timers is that where the this stuff is happening, if you go and you look at prophecy, is in this area of the Golan and all that stuff. So if you're at all into if you're into conspiracies and prophecies, I mean, hey, I'm a human being. I like and look at the nutty stories I follow. So certainly, oh, that's my ice machine. I'm sorry, guys. I was like, that happened last time. I'm gonna have to figure out something about that. You remember I said there's not a magazine of bullets falling on the floor. Okay, that one has to get dealt with. Anyways, so the Shabbatniks and the alt right, Baptist snake handlers, end timers, and the family, they all kind of have this thing going on. But the thing that we haven't gotten, or the thing that I've just realized that a lot of people don't get, and I thought people did get, was the White Russian thing. And we're gonna do some kind of piece or some component of a show about White Russians and go deeper into it. Because you know what, the White Russians, not only were they tied up to Reinhard Galen, the SS general, they very much have been tied into several different JFK conspiracies through what was his name? God almighty. The White Russian with the white hair. I'll remember his name, but he was he made friends with and helped Lee Harvey Oswald get his job in the book depository building. And the Paines, I don't know if you remember any of the JFK stuff, and I'm not doing this, but just as something to kind of end up here, is the Paines were friends. Remember Marina, Oswald's wife, went when they were having trouble with each other. Marina went and stayed with that other couple, right? And that woman kind of watched out for her. That lady's name was Payne, and so was the husband. And the story behind that is incredible. They've been tied to the CIA, and uh, the Mister Payne, which is an interesting name, right? Um, Worked for I think it was it Bell? It's either Bell Helicopter or Sikorsky. I don't think it was. It'd be interesting if it was Sikorsky because the name, but in any event, the whole thing with the Dominionist White Russians, Shabads, they all end up being this one group of people, and it's really weird because they're so. You would think they're so diametrically opposed to each other that they would never, they would never be on the same ballpark together. Now it's like you can imagine them sitting around playing cards or something. But that's the story, folks. Let me see if I got anything else in my notes. I don't want to miss anything here. We did transactional administration and its disciples. That was a good piece. Tripact are in oil. Netanyahu, tier 1 of Genie. Who in the U.S. military will tell us? Yeah, how about a military person come forward and tell us what's up? Why has the coverage of the troops protecting the oil in Syria been cut down to nearly zip, or actually nothing? Do we think, if needed, uh, Eric Prince's academy soldiers are very far away from uh, protecting someone like Genie? Think about that. That would be really scary because now I can start to see end time stuff coming true. But anyways, that's our story. That's the way it is. That's the deal. Uh, this is Last Chance Radio with David Benjamin. Check out our website at lastchanceradio.com. Come on, say hello, and I'll say goodbye. Have a great night. Peace.